Well, did you see this? Senator John Cornyn airing attack ads against State Senator Royce West during the Democratic presidential debate. The Texas primary is still more than 7 months away, and there are 4 declared Democratic candidates. So is Cornyn focusing early on West because he considers him the front runner, or is there something else at play here? Ross Ramsey is watching this Senate race closely. He is the co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune. Good morning to you, Ross. So the question here is, does Cornyn see West as the leader of the Democratic candidates, or maybe just the one he has the best shot at beating?
Well, that depends on which kind of conspiracy theory you want to entertain here. You know, the one devious idea is that Cornyn is trying to take West out of this race before he really gets in it because he's the guy that he's afraid of. West has been in the legislature for 25 years or more, has a lot of experience, has run a lot of races. He's from Dallas County, which is a big vote center. So that's one theory. The other theory is that West is the guy that Cornyn wants to run against, and so he's trying to elevate him above the other Democrats. It's interesting that he was advertising during a Democratic debate, which probably has a disproportionately Democratic audience, and he won't face the winner of a Democratic primary for more than a year.
Ross, we've seen several Texas congressmen announcing that they will not run for re-election, all of them Republicans too, the biggest of them coming late in the week, though, Will Hurd. Talk about the significance of this.
Well, Will Hurd is the earthquake here. You know, he's from one of the closest swing districts in the United States, much less Texas. The 23rd district goes all the way from San Antonio over to El Paso. Importantly, it has more of the United States-Mexico border than any other congressional district, and he's been kind of a go-to expert for Republicans and Democrats on this. He's been a little bit of an apostate under the Trump administration, often at odds with the administration. He's the only black Republican in Congress. He's significant in a lot of ways, and it's going to be a lost voice for the Republican Party and maybe a lost race if they don't have an incumbent there.
All right, Ross Ramsey with the Texas Tribune giving some important perspective on what has been a busy week. Ross, thank you.